Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Car Chronicles. I'm Dr. Carmen Bryant. How you guys doing? You ready? All right, let's do this. So today, let's talk about deflection. Deflection, you guys heard deflection. You guys heard of deflection concerning like narcissists. But let's talk about what deflection is. In the world of psychology, deflection is considered a defense mechanism, also a coping strategy or coping mechanism. But when you deflect, or when someone is deflecting, let's say in a therapy setting, in a therapeutic setting where a person is having to deal with some very traumatic events, some very hard issues that's causing triggers and causing anxiety, oftentimes what they do is they'll take you off track and deflect to something else. Or those people that have been abused and misused by a narcissist develop some type of behavior. Sometimes that behavior is very unbecoming. Sometimes that behavior is very narcissistic in nature, even though they're not narcissists. Oftentimes survivors behave poorly. Sometimes survivors speak harshly. A lot of times survivors are the hardest people to work with a lot of times because they have been so traumatized. But a lot of times they won't take responsibility for their behaviors. What they'll do instead is deflect onto the narcissist. Now, true enough, the narcissist has played a major role when it comes to the abuse and the let's say the nature of your behavior. So true enough, we understand that the family that you've come up in, the narcissist has played a role, the family has played a role, and so you have developed some very uncomfortable and some dysfunctional coping mechanisms. But what happens is a lot of times survivors or victims don't want to take responsibility of their own behavior, because it's almost like beating them up even more. It's almost like listening to that narcissist, because that narcissist deflects their poor behavior and starts blaming you, but you. Well, survivors and victims do the same things oftentimes. They deflect. Well, I wouldn't be like that if it wouldn't be it wouldn't be for the narcissist. So instead of looking at themselves, assessing themselves and saying, oh my gosh, I don't like my behavior. When someone points it out, they become very argumentative and they'll point their finger back at the narcissist. Well, the narcissist used to do this and it's not even half as bad as what they used to do. And I do that, because I had to defend myself, instead of saying, you know what, because of the fact that I have been involved in a situation like this, I have developed some really bad behaviors. I don't want to be like this, instead of just taking the responsibility. But oftentimes it's kind of hard. So a victim will deflect right back to the narcissist. Well, now imagine if a victim or a survivor is deflecting, imagine what that narcissist does every time you confront them about their bad behavior. That's just like children when they have siblings and they deflect when they get in trouble. Go to part 2 and I'm going to talk about it. All right, this is Car Chronicles and this is deflection part 2. So hopefully you guys go and watch part 1 so to continue the conversation. And to continue the conversation, I was talking about like children. Children, when they deflect. When a child knows that they're going to get in trouble and they got a sibling, the first thing they do is deflect on all the things that the other sibling is doing so that they don't get in trouble, because they're in fear of the consequences. Well, let's talk about the narcissist and deflection. A narcissist cannot handle not being perfect. In their mindset, they're going to draw a picture to make you feel or think that they are perfect. They know that they're not perfect and they know that they're flawed, but they're not going to allow anyone to tell them where they're flawed. So something as simple as making constructive criticism or helping them in their behaviors, or talking about some destructive behaviors that they have or behaviors, instead of them taking responsibility of their behaviors, they will deflect onto someone else, which is usually the supply or somebody else. They're going to deflect. The reason why I'm like this is because of my mother, father, sister, brother, cousin, children. They will blame the kids, their significant other, the dog, the cat, the fish, the sparrow, and the doves in the air. But they'll never take responsibility for their own behaviors. So you wonder why they don't change, is because they don't see anything wrong with themselves and they refuse to accept that whatever you have said or how bad that they probably are, they refuse to accept that, because they're going to pick out your flaws to override their flaws, to deflect you into a different focus. And most people start to argue with them and then begin to focus on all the things about themselves, taking you way off of conversation. And you guys are playing basketball, and then the next thing you know, you're swimming. You wonder how you got in the swimming pool, because they deflected and they changed your course of trajectory. There we go. They changed the course of the conversation. They changed it, and you got caught up in the change of the conversation. And just like I said about survivors, when you come out of situations like that, you have learned to protect yourself. Because remember, deflection in the world of psychology is a coping mechanism. It's a coping strategy. It's coping mechanism. It is a way of surviving because you can't handle the feedback that's coming to you. When you're with a narcissist, the narcissist is always giving you some type of dysfunctional feedback. You come in there and you were 5'10". Now you think that you're 5'2". Because they have convinced you. So the whole time you're always in this situationship, whether it's with the parents, because they don't find anything perfect or good about you, or if it's with the narcissist, relationship, there's nothing positive. And so you're always fighting. All your life you had to fight. All your life. But survivors do the same thing. They deflect. They deflect their ugliness or their misbehaviors because they're defending themselves or helping themselves, but they don't realize how ugly they can be as well, and they deflect it back onto another person. Just like the narcissist. No different.